What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Celtics Daily with me, Mike Zakarian, and we are back talking all things Beantown boys of the Celtics heading into the offseason. And every morning I wake up to see, hey, are we going to have anything to talk about this morning? Because there's no way, right? We're in the dead of the offseason. The NBA Finals, the draft's still not here yet. There can't be anything else to talk about. And without fail, every single morning we at least get one or two new reports that we can then overanalyze, dissect, and ultimately come to zero conclusion about. And that's what we're going to do here this morning. But if it's your first time here, hey, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, the notification bell, drop a like on the video and a comment. Do all of the things that boost the algo, okay? Speaking of boosting the algo, Drew Holiday hit the algorithm yesterday. And I got to tell you, I might have to take an L on this because I thought for sure the Celtics would have to attach some other assets to Drew Holiday to actually move him because of his contract, right? So we know he's making like $32 million this year. And then the next couple of years, that goes up to like 34, 36, or 37, around that range, right? And so knowing how he played towards the end of the season, knowing that he's only getting older, the contract's only getting higher, I thought it was going to be pretty difficult for the Celtics to move off him. Now, not only that, we should keep in mind that this is probably the Celtics leaking some of this information because Mark Stein, the Stein line, if you will, if you subscribe to his newsletter over on Substack, reported that the Celtics are setting the market for Drew Holiday at a first-round pick. Now that they know some other salary will have to come back in order to make the deal work financially to fit into the collective bargaining agreement. But I thought that was pretty interesting because I thought there was a real shot that the Celtics would also have to include a first-round pick or have to include something else just for that team to take on Drew Holiday. Now, I think because of this market that is being set right now, it really narrows in the scope of teams that would be interested in Drew Holiday. And we've talked about these two teams before, but I really think it's just basically now coming down to the Dallas Mavericks and the Los Angeles Clippers. I know the Sacramento Kings have been mentioning that they've been interested in acquiring Drew Holiday, but Sacramento, I urge you to put the pipe down because Drew Holiday is clearly a piece you add if you're trying to play competitive basketball right now, and the Kings would have to add Drew Holiday and like Victor Wembanyama to all of a sudden become competitive. Now, I don't know how the Kings did this, where they looked at the Chicago Bulls, who have finished 9th and 10th in the East like every single year for the last 35 years, and they were like, give me that roster, except put it in the Western Conference. So yeah, I don't think they're a Drew Holiday away. However, the Los Angeles Clippers, right, who we assume James Harden is going to be coming back. He's got a player option. Kawhi Leonard is back, and Kawhi honestly looked really, really good most of last season. They really monitored those minutes and wasn't playing back-to-backs, but that second half of the season, right, from like March and April as they were ramping up to the playoffs, Kawhi was playing more minutes and more consecutive games. He looks really good. They have Norman Powell, although he's kind of entered the trade rumor mill as well. I don't think he would be included in a Drew Holiday-esque deal, but I thought that was interesting. And then they've got the big man, Ivica Zubac, right? So that's like their core that the Clippers would be bringing back. Drew Holiday would make a ton of sense in that team. Again, what did they finish? 5th in the West as they lost to the Nuggets in the first round in that 4-5 matchup. But I do think they would be a pretty competitive team if they added somebody like Drew Holiday. Now, one of the issues they run into is they gave all of their first-round picks for the next 55 years to the Oklahoma City Thunder, along with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, which has been working out swimmingly for the OKC Thunder. But they do still have some assets to move, and again, they could steal a first-round pick from them. So I thought that one was pretty interesting. Like, if the Clippers feel like they are just a move or two away, maybe they are willing to part with the first-round pick and then some salary filler to go get. And we've pointed these guys out before. Maybe it's like a Bogdan Bogdanovic or a Derek Jones Jr. Again, another asset that the Celtics could turn and flip or just, bring him back into their roster for next season. So I thought that one's interesting. And then the second team, obviously, they've been talked about a ton. It would have to include 3 teams in order to make this deal work, and that's the Dallas Mavericks. For those being like, wait, are you talking about getting the first overall pick for Drew Holiday? Nope, that's not going to happen. But Dallas does have a couple of their first-round picks still secured. I believe the San Antonio Spurs, have their 2030 pick, I believe. However, their next year's first-round pick, which most likely is like a mid to late first round, right? that would be available. And but you would have to include a third team because of them being a second apron team. The salaries have to match like 100%, and that's not why the Celtics would be moving off Drew Holiday to bring in the same amount of money, right? Because just a reminder, if the Celtics brought everybody back right now, their roster would be right around, I think, $240 million. But because they are over the tax, you add another $260 million. So it becomes a $500 million roster. So to just swap salaries is not going to get it done, even though it would be nice to get off of the last couple of years of Drew. They're going to have to find a way to slash salary a little bit more. So that's why a third team would need to be involved. And honestly, I'd be open to both of those. I don't think like a next year first round pick is going to be too juicy from the Dallas Mavericks. However, we're talking about Kyrie Irving, who is not going to be back until January. We're talking about a rookie having to share a pretty big load. We're talking about an aging Klay Thompson and then Anthony Davis, who, breaking news, just went to the locker room, right? So there is a world where that first like dives, but it's also Nico Harrison, who, executed one of the worst trades of all time. There's Jason Kidd rumors, who might be taking the New York Knicks head coaching job, which, like, good riddance, good luck. But anyways, I do think Dallas could be an interesting landing spot. So that made me a little bit more bullish on the Drew Holiday trade. Again, that might be the Celtics birdies just throwing some rumors out there, being like, actually, we want a first-round pick. But that made me feel a little bit better at the prospects of moving off of Drew. And again, I think he becomes pretty desirable in the right fit. It's just making sure those teams are, not desperate, but are willing to part ways. And I do think those two teams we just outlined would be there. On the flip side, Porzingis, who I thought was going to be the easiest one to move off of, the rumors are looking like the Celtics are going to have to attach something to Porzingis. So Holiday and Porzingis flipped roles, apparently. And again, that might have to do more with the health stuff, right? It is nice that it is an expiring contract, right? So this is the last year. So I don't think the Celtics should have to attach too much to it. And if they are able to move off Drew Holiday, there's a real world where they're not moving KP in this offseason, right? Because I do think one of the things people assume is that they're like, okay, we need to get all of these moves done before October. And that's not necessarily true. Like, yes, we're going to see a lot of movement happen, right? Like in the next couple of weeks for the draft. But we're also going to see some stuff happen mid-season, and the Celtics might be like, "Hey, let's see how he does in Latvia on Eurobasket." Then he comes back, plays in October, November, puts up a couple of 20 and 12 games, right? And then either the Celtics are competitive and they're like, "KP, why don't you stay with us?" Or all of a sudden they're like a 5-6 seed, and KP's playing pretty well, and they're like, "Hey, listen, Golden State. You want a little Kristaps Porzingis?" So I wonder if they just like sit back and wait on this and not force the issue. I do think one of KP or Drew Holiday will be off the team by the start of training camp, but I don't necessarily think both of them need to be off. But they got to get rid of one of them because there's just no way they're going to go into the tax again. But again, let's like move on to segment 3 here with Brad's test. The Brad situation is so fascinating to me because it's clear in the comments of these videos, it's clear on Twitter, it's clear on podcasts, right? That this Celtics fandom is like pretty torn on what to do. And I think it's a mixed bag of being like, listen, the Celtics sum is as great as their parts. Is that the saying? I don't know. We're not going to fact check it though, are we, you dorks? But like that they play pretty well without Tatum already. We look at the Eastern Conference and how bad it is. And like, you just being like, man, if we just bring back most of this core, we have a pretty good shot. And then there's a whole other side of the fan base that it's like, we should trade this down all the way to the studs. That people will yell Jaylen Brown's overpaid. They were like, hey, listen, let's just build around Tatum and let's go get a good draft pick next year. Although I don't know if you guys forgot, like just because you tank, you're not guaranteed a good pick. Look at Brooklyn, Toronto, even Utah, Charlotte. Like all of those guys got jumped by the freaking Spurs and Mavericks and even the Sixers. So I don't think you're like guaranteed a top tier lottery pick, but there's just so many different paths forward. There's like a small rebuild where you just move a couple of pieces to get under the cap, still compete the best you can, and then when Tatum comes back, we're ready to go. Or you just like full on throw a grenade in there like Ja Morant after he hits a three-pointer and go kablooey, and you just completely rebuild. So this is like the first real big test for Brad Stevens. Think about it. Since he's taken over in the front office, the Celtics have been pretty much a highly competitive team. I mean, they've been a competitive team when he was coaching too, but you had the Ime Udoka run, and then Joey Maz comes in. I mean, they're like constantly in the Final Four of the Eastern Conference. They had 2 finals appearances since then, with winning one of them, right? And now we're like, hey, listen, man, you got to trade 1 or 2 core pieces from the team that got you a chip, or you trade a franchise cornerstone that's like immersed himself within the community, all NBA, multi-time all-star, and overpaid, right? So like I don't envy being in Brad's spot. And you just lost Austin Ainge from your front office. You just got a new ownership, right? And I know Wick Grousbeck is still involved in it, but it's still like, he's not the decision maker. You get somebody else paying the bills now. You don't have that built-in relationship with them, and it's easy when you buy the team to be like, Celtics for life. And then you have to pay the tax one time. And you're like, wait, hold on, man. What's up? There was $7 billion I paid for this team, and now I got to pay $500 million. What's going on, baby? And I don't know. So this is going to be a pretty big test for Brad, pretty big test for Bill Chisholm. Don't envy that spot. Don't envy it at all. Excited to see how it shakes out. There's a lot more draft talk coming up here and a lot of off-season scuttlebutt. And I think like the teams that I'm most excited, like if we just take ourselves out of the Celtics fandom for a second, I think there's a couple, like the San Antonio Spurs and Houston Rockets, I think are just in these fascinating spots right now. Houston almost more so than San Antonio. We saw Houston take Golden State Warriors kind of down to the wire in the first round of the playoffs. They kind of overachieved in that first round. They've got another lottery pick this season. They've got Reed Shepherd, who was the number 2 overall pick last season, who barely saw the floor because he doesn't play great defense, and you know how Ime feels about defense. You got all these young. Ahmed Thompson turned into a superstar in the playoffs. You got to figure out what to do with Jalen Green, Alpi Sengun. Like they're very close to either running it back and then still being very competitive in the West, or are they more like the Sacramento Kings, who had that one season where everybody was healthy, bounced in the first round by the Golden State Warriors, and then kind of went right back to lighting the beam once a year? Or do they like package everything together, go get a star right now, and attack the Western Conference? Same thing with the San Antonio Spurs, man. You get the number 2 overall pick. Everybody's very excited by the Rutgers kid, Harper. You got De'Aaron Fox, who you're going to have to extend here in a second. You got Victor Wembanyama, who's apparently still growing and shaving his head. I don't know if you guys saw that. And then, Castle, the reigning rookie of the year. And same thing with Giannis on the board. I don't know how they approach it. Do they go get somebody great right now? There's a lot of rumors about San Antonio and Kevin Durant. There's a lot of rumors about Houston and Kevin Durant. So I think it's stuff is going to start to heat up a little bit as the OKC Thunder probably win an NBA Finals. I think we're going to start to get some rumors. So we're just a couple weeks away from actually getting some real information instead of just reading the tea leaves or the tweet leaves, if you will. But that's going to do it today for the Celtics Daily. I appreciate you for hanging out and watching. Do me a favor, like the video, hit the notification bell, and again, just subscribe, Just subscribe. Why not? Why not? We'll see you next time.